one of the reasons this phone's so interesting, it has two displays, the usual one on the front, and then there's the one on the back, which, don't worry, we'll get into. I wanted to tell you what you get for $550. So to start with, there's only one hardware spec version, but there's two colors. This one's called Diamond Black, and then there's Twilight Blue. But one hardware spec isn't necessarily a bad thing here. So we've got the latest Snapdragon 855 Plus, 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of internal storage, no micro SD expansion, sorry, a 6.4-inch Full HD Plus AMOLED display, and a 4,000 milliamp hour battery with a 27-watt rapid charger in the box. Again, only $550. Sounds pretty good so far, right? Yeah, well, I haven't even gotten to the triple camera setup or the secondary display or the in-frame pressure sensors. All right, now the design style itself should be pretty similar to most of you because it's been featured in such adult films as almost all recent Samsung Galaxy phones, the OnePlus 7 Pro, a whole host of Huawei phones, and a number of other phones I'd list if I cared enough. But basically, it's shiny, it likes fingerprints, and it has a curved bezel-less display. There's no headphone jack, so you'll have to use either the super fun to lose dongle or some USB Type-C headphones. Now there's two power buttons on both sides with in-button fingerprint scanners you can use depending on which display you want to use or even which side you prefer. And I gotta say, they're bloody fast and really accurate. The speaker situation's a little disappointing with only one on the bottom. It's sufficient, I guess, but this phone would have really brought it home if it had stereo speakers. So the main display is a 6.4-inch 2340 by 1080 AMOLED panel, and for a Full HD Plus display, it's sharp, it's colorful and punchy. It can get up to 600 nits with auto brightness outdoors. It's no 90 hertz, but for $550, it's a really, really nice display. Software is basically stock Android 9 with some of Nubia's own features thrown in, but there's no bloatware or annoying OEM apps, which was really awesome to see, and it's snappy too. I mean, I did have to turn down the animation speeds and developer options because I'm not getting any younger, but I mean, Snapdragon 855 Plus and 8 gigs of RAM, you know, what do you want me to say? Now there's some pressure sensors on the side that you squeeze to activate just like on Pixel phones. And I actually really like this feature because by default, it's set to one-handed mode, which is way easier for me than swiping up from the bottom corner like on other phones. And the best part is, you can actually customize it to do a bunch of other stuff, like launch Google Assistant if you wanted to. There's a game mode feature called Game Space. I know, super original, but it's actually kind of neat. So you activate it from your pull down quick toggles and any games you have installed will show up in there. And if you swipe from the right, a control panel appears. And in there you can see temperatures, adjust the brightness, enable different performance modes, and even set left and right touch sensitive buttons on the back with the secondary display, which, I mean, come on, that's pretty cool. So let's chat about the secondary display. It's a 5.1-inch 1520 by 720 AMOLED panel that'll get up to 320 nits, and it's covered in synthetic sapphire glass. So when it's off, it's almost completely invisible, except when you catch it in the light. Now there's some kind of gimmicky features. For example, there's these scene lighting effects that play in animation depending on what you're doing. Except the animations are super limited, and the custom animation option only has 3 animations to choose from. You just simply get to tweak them a tiny bit. And then there's some options to customize how you interact with the secondary. Do you want auto or manual screen switching? Do you want a floating button to switch screens, or do you want a quick toggle in the pull down? And which screen do you want the power buttons to wake? There's also options for dual screen multitasking, where you can run 2 different apps on both displays at the same time, or you can set it to mirror whatever's on the main display to the secondary. I mean, hey, you include a secondary display, you may as well throw all the features and the kitchen sink at it too. Personally, I can't ever see myself doing something like browsing the web on the main display and having a messaging chat going on at the same time on the secondary. This is too much going on, but maybe that's just a sign I'm turning into a crusty old geezer. For me, the real draw is using it as a viewfinder with the cameras, because if you haven't guessed by now, there's no selfie camera. You simply launch the camera app, tap the usual switch camera buttons, and it'll switch over to the secondary display. You flip the phone over, smile at the camera, snap your shot. There's even a button so you can have the viewfinder on both displays so the person you're taking a picture of can see themselves. Like, that's pretty neat. Now, there's 3 cameras we're working with here. The main 48 megapixel camera with OIS, and then a 16 megapixel ultra wide and an 8 megapixel telephoto with a 3x zoom, which don't have OIS. For the most part, photos out of these cameras can look really good with great colors, saturation, and okay dynamic range, but I did notice some issues like lots of blown out highlights, a bit of noticeable overprocessing, inaccurate auto white balance, lots of autofocus hunting, and every time I switched to portrait, even though I turned off beauty mode, it turns back on by default. super annoying. But when it gets it right, portrait photos actually look pretty great with really good edge detection. But when it doesn't get it right, it really doesn't get it right. And something to consider, when you're using portrait mode, it drops a 48 megapixel camera down to 12 megapixels. And when you're done, you gotta go into settings to change it back to 48 megapixels, which I don't think I have to tell you, that's throat punching territory right there. Now, 4K video looks great, but it also has this option for 8K video, which is still in beta, and it's terrible. I have absolutely no clue why they even bothered including it other than proof of concept, but it's like the worst proof of concept ever. I don't know. Now, battery life's been really good considering I got 6.5 hours of screen on time with heavy use. Probably could have even got 7 with the 13% I had left. Anyways, I think if both the camera app and post-processing was tweaked, refined, and polished some more, we'd have a really competitive camera system on a phone with some really impressive specs at a price that gives even the OnePlus 7T a run for its money. It may not be everyone's bag of blow, but it's definitely a phone to consider. Well, I think that does it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, show me some love with that like button, maybe subscribe if you're new to my stuff, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram to see what I'm up to next. But thanks as always for watching, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Cheers.